Hello everyone, myself Laksmi of grade 9D from Akshara Public School Vijayapur, here to make a video on the chapter in the Kingdom of Fools. Now let us learn the characters in this lesson. Characters in this lesson are King and Minister, Guru and Disciple, Merchant, Old Man, Dancing Woman and Goldsmith. King and minister were so foolish and they didn't want to run their kingdom as usual. But whereas Guru and disciple were very smart enough to handle the situations. Now let us see the setting of the story or where the story was located. The story was located in city, kingdom, goldsmith shop. Important events in this chapter are the king decided to change the usual rules of the kingdom, such as he decided to turn day into night and night into day, and the citizens were forced to follow the rules made by king. If the citizens failed to follow the rules made by king, they were punished with death. So the citizens with a scare of death followed the rules made by king. Second important event of this chapter is one bright day, a thief went into rich merchant's house and made a hole into the wall and sneezed in. As he was out with a lure, the old wall of house collapsed and killed the merchant who lived in the house. And this led to the entire story. Now let us learn the third important event of this chapter. Due to the foolishness of king, he himself died. Problem of this story is the king and minister were foolish and idiots who didn't want to run their kingdom as usual. So they decided to turn day into night and night into day. This was the problem of the story. Now let us see the solution of the problem. Foolishness became the main reason for the death of the king, and next the guru was thrown as king and the disciple was named as minister of the kingdom. As we know that every story normally have moral, and this story too have moral. Now let us look after the moral of the story. The moral of the story says that one should stay away from the foolish people or one is bound to suffer. It means that, as we saw in the story, Guru was smart enough to handle the situations. He got to know the situations of the kingdom and left the kingdom. Whereas disciple didn't leave the kingdom. He was so excited to spend his life in the kingdom because of cheap availability of daily needs.
Very good day to everybody. A creative explanation of a chapter, The Kingdom of Fools. So myself, Trinetra from class 9D, Akshara Public School. So let's start. Kingdom of Fools. So every story has some characters. This story also has some important characters. They are king, minister, merchant, and a thief, and the old woman dancer, the old man worker who built the wall, and the goldsmith. The king and the ministers were foolish. So every story also has some important events which make the story interesting. So this story also has some important events. They are king and his ministers made some foolish laws. He made day to night. It means all should work at night and sleep at day. And the second law was all object or a thing should to be buy is only 1 rupee or the cost is 1 rupee. So the second event is disciple didn't listen to his guru and stayed there for food which was very cheap and later became fat, so he was to be thrown down to the cliff. And the third event was sage fooled the king and realized his mistake, and later he was made as a king. Here is the mind map of the story. So let us start with the setting. Setting means the place where the story has been took. The story has been took in 4 places. They are village, palace court, and on the cliff and in the market. As every story has some problem and one solution, so this story also has one problem and one solution. The problem is king and his ministers were foolish and made foolish laws which gave difficulties to the villagers to live. And this solution was solved by the sage and disciple. The sage made fool of the king by saying them that who will fall in the cliff, they will be greeted by the fairies and they will fulfill their wishes. So when the king became greedy, he took his ministers and him and fell into the cliff. He wanted to fulfill his wish. He wanted to fulfill his wishes. So but but there were no fairies. So they were trapped in a net which was placed by the sage, and he taught the lesson for them. And the king realized his mistake and made the sage and the disciple the new emperors of the kingdom, and all the villagers were happy. So moral of the story is stay away from foolishness. To tackle foolishness, we should employ wisdom, not the logic. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Krupa. I'm studying at grade 9C. Today, I'm here to explain the chapter The Lost Child, written by Mulkraj Anand. Mulkraj Shira Anand was born on 12th of December 1905. He was an Indian writer in English. The learning objectives are: in this session, we are able to understand the lesson, The Lost Child, what are the characters in the lesson, the setting of the story, what is the problem faced by the child, what is the solution for his problem. The characters in the story are child, parents, man, flower seller, sweet seller. The settings are near the entrance of the fair, toy shop, sweet shop, and temple. There were two major problems in the story. The first one was that his parents refused to buy the little kid the things he wanted at the fair. Second one was that he was lost at the fair. The solution for the first problem was that his mother distracted the mind of the child from the attracting things he saw in the fair. The things that attracted the boy are the toys in the shop, Burfi, colorful balloons, a group of dragonflies, flowering mustards, little insects, the door, a garland of gulmohar, a music of snake charmer. It was the spring fair. All the people were going to it. Some walked, some rode on horses, some in the bullock carts. The little kid ran with their parents. He was overjoyed when he remained behind by seeing the toys. He wanted the toy, but his father refused to buy him the toy. So the mother distracted the child by saying that, "Look, child, what is before you?" And it was the flowering mustard field. The fields looked like gold with it. The dragonflies were fluttering over the mustard flowers. The child tried to catch one of them, but he was called by his mother. "Come, child, come." He ran towards his parents. He heard the door cooling. He had picked up the petals in the grove. Then he also ran around the banyan tree, but again he was called by his parents. Soon the child reached the fair. He heard sweetmeat seller calling, "Gulab jamun, rasgulla, burfi, jalebi." The sweet shop was greatly decorated with different sweets. Seeing the sweets, the child's mouth watered. He said slowly, "I want that burfi." Burfi was his favorite sweet, but his saying was so unheeded, cause he knew that his parents could not would not buy it. The child went ahead with his parents. He heard a flower seller saying, "A garland of gulmohar." The child went to the flower basket. He wanted a garland, but he knew his parents would refuse to buy him that. So he moved on. Then he saw a balloon seller. He had balloons of various colors. The child knew that his parents would not buy him the balloon because they would say that your age is not of playing the balloon. So he moved on without thinking. Then the child saw the snake charmer playing a flute for the snake. He went near the snake charmer, but he knew that his parents had asked him not to hear such course of music. So, without waiting, he went ahead. Then he saw the roundabout where men woman and child were enjoying. So the child made the bold request to his parents, I want to go to the roundabout, please, father, mother. But there was no reply, and he saw forward and backward, but there was no sign of his parents. A deep cry rose within the child's bright throat. He started crying, Mother, father, the tears rolled down his eyes. He cried and ran to and fro, but he couldn't see his parents. Then he ran near the temple where there was a crowd. He pushed the people and he went between the people's feet, but he was pushed back. A man heard his cry. He lifted him up. The man asked the child, How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? But the child replied that, I want my father, I want my mother. He tried the man tried to convince the child by asking him on the ride on the horse, but he again replied the same, I want my mother, I want my father. The man also offered him the sweets, but again he said the same thing. The man tried to convince him all the time, and all the time he said that I want my father, I want my mother. So the story ends here. In this story, we can get to know the bond between the parent and child. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I Shreyas from grade 9th here to explain the topic The Adventures of Toto by Ruskin Bond. So let us begin. At the end of the video, you will be able to understand the story and write the summary of it. Appreciate the author, analyze the setting, characters and the problem. Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond is an Indian author of British descent. He lives with his adopted family in Landor, Missouri, India. The Indian Council for Child Education has recognized his role in the growth of children's literature in India. He was born on 19 May 1931 in Kasauli. His education in Bishop Cotton School in Shimla in 1950. He was awarded by Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan. So let us see the vocabulary of this story. Wicked, morally wrong and bad. Scoop, to move something with a scoop or with something used as scoop. Wrench, to push or twist something suddenly or violently away from its position. Shred, a very small, thin piece that has been torn from something. Abode, the place where someone lives. Grin, a wide smile. Apparent, able to seen or understood. Haunch, one of the back legs of an animal with 4 legs that is used for meat. Quadruped, any animal that has 4 legs. Prod, to push something or someone with your finger or with a pointed object. Haul, to pull something heavy slowly and with difficulty. So, let us understand the characters of this story. They are Toto, a pretty mischievous monkey. Grandfather, he was kind and favor of animals as he had a private zoo. Grandmother, the narrator's grandmother was hated of animals. The ticket collector and the tonga driver, he was careless towards Toto as he tied Toto to a feeding trough. So let us see the setting of this story. In the house of narrator, railway station of Sharanpur, bedroom of the narrator, donkey stable where the Nana lived, the private zoo of the grandfather. The problem of the story are Toto tore the blazer of the narrator. The ticket collector seemed to consider Toto as dog and collected 3 rupees as its fare. Toto did not allow other companions to sleep. It spoiled the pulao dish. Toto was succeeded in boiling himself alive. So let us understand the summary of the story The Adventures of Toto. Grandfather bought Toto from a tanga driver for the sum of 5 rupees. It was a pretty and mischievous monkey. He kept Toto secretly in his grandson's room because the grandmother was hated of animals. Toto messed up the room by tearing the blazer of the narrator and making the walls naked. Toto was transferred to a big cage where other pets lived. They include a tortoise, a pair of rabbits, a tame squirrel, and a pet goat. Toto did not leave any of his companions to sleep at night. So, next day, grandfather took Toto to Sharanpur where he wanted to collect his pension. Toto was provided a big black canvas bag throughout the journey to remain inside. The ticket collector, while collecting money, Toto suddenly came out, which made the ticket collector to consider it as a dog and collected 3 rupees since he did not have any fare mentioned in his book. The grandfather removed the tortoise from his pocket and asked, "Should I pay for this also?" The ticket collector said, "No charge." Finally, Toto was accepted by grandmother and was transferred to Nana's stable, where Toto did not become friend with Nana. He used to bath with warm water which was given by grandmother as a winter treat. Once he was succeeded in boiling himself alive. One day the pulao dish was at the center of the dining table. The family found him stuffing with the dish. When grandfather entered, it ran out of the window and spoiled the dish by throwing it from the height. At last, grandfather realized that he could not afford the loss made by Toto and sold back to the Tonga driver for the sum of 5 rupees. Thank you. I hope you liked my video.